I'm Peter. I'm head of technology at Craft, and it's really short lightning talk. I would like to talk about how we enabled non-engineers in our company, designers, user researchers, growth managers, to contribute to the code base and help build the product together. I try to be really short. I don't want to steal Scott's spotlight here. During my 14 years of engineering and career here, there is a really interesting trend I watched and I saw here in this era. Is a shifting in the company's culture and the company's thinking from the "this is not my problem" to the "it's our problem" thinking. This meaning that people in the company try to do more, trying to step out of their disciplines, and they try to contribute to areas and other sources and other areas that also contribute to the product and build the product together. So some examples from the last 10 years here, like Spotify introduced this squad model. I don't know whether you heard about it, where they put one person from every department, design, QA, and engineering into one autonomous team. So they built product together. This empathy of working together with designer hand to hand in one team helped them to allow them to think in the head of a designer or the head of an engineers together. So they put a lot of interesting person together. Also in Skyscanner, where I worked previously, they merged the test engineer and the normal engineer roles together. So engineers started to think about quality and how to test their product, and testers started to think about coding, how they can structure the automation test more reliably. Here at Craft, kind of simultaneously, we also merged product thinking and also engineering into product engineers here. Meaning engineers also have to think about the user, about what looks nice, what is really good, and what is valuable for the user. All of the things made people kind of remove these silos, these boundaries between departments, and they also started to pick in others code and others working area and task to have the product together. And it's inevitable to non-engineers to actually start to code. So this is like something that can come from this era, this trend that I watch here. And this is not a really good place and time to do this, because LLMs, large language models, can help you and lower the entry criteria to touch code and help shaping the product via writing codes here. So everybody, you don't need to learn for 4 years coding. You only have to be curious, think a lot, and speak English, basically. Here at Craft, we realized that there's many people who want to contribute to code, and they also have access to Cloud Code and ChatGPT, and they really wanted to take on the job, and we wanted to support them. So the last month here was about me and other senior engineers helping them contribute to the code. So in this short talk, hopefully, I will share you what worked, what not worked, but there is no verdict here. It's an open-ended question. We still don't know what will end up from this, but we see that actually this was, at least in my perspective, a really fruitful and a good learning in this part. If there are a lot of non-engineers rushing to your code and try to do coding and contribute to your product, it's really important that you prepare. This is not a vibe coding experience. This is a controlled, supervised environment, because we don't want to put stress on the people. We don't want to expect them to do quality code. We don't want to expect them to ship without anybody looking on their code. That's too much pressure for them. So we prepared. And how you can prepare? First, you give the best tools to these people. These best tools actually, like the top tier Cloud Code subscription, which we can do monthly. You don't have to pay for yearly. If it doesn't fit for 1 month, you can cancel it. We also have an organizational ChatGPT account where these non-engineers also get access to. And we also have the processes, like on the engineering side, we are SOC 2 compliant, meaning that your code has to go through a senior engineers via pull request, and we also do security checking, so no API key were leaked during the process. We also have a really good cultural safety net here in Craft, which consists of like our internal dogfooding. The whole application is used by every member of the company, so the whole company is built basically, and depending on the software. Meaning, if you ship something, if you release something internally, that will be actually tested tomorrow already, and any bugs that you see will be reported by you. Of course, there will be also like a QA team, a stability team who will test your work. So there are also a lot of safetiness. But one of the most important things is actually that when you start working with LLMs, you also provide your full Bible of coding for them. That's what we are calling agents markdown here. We collected all of the frameworks, all of the coding techniques, all of the best practices that we learned during the years we were coding for all of the people here. So the cloud code or ChatGPT knew already what we learned from the 5 years. With this setup, let's talk about the stories that we have here actually. Meaning, who are our warriors who in the last months try to contribute to the code base. Let's start with Lisa, who was my first like mentoree in this part. She is a user researcher. And the user researcher in Craft tries to actually predict the future, seeing what features, what new capabilities is missing from Craft, or what is the existing capabilities that could take some care here. And one of the key points that they need for this is analytics event. Analytics event in the Craft code base is a very common thing. There are 100, 200 instances where we actually have this code written down. So LLMs can really easily see how they could actually be fired, how should be they configured. So she took on the task, fired up Cloud Code, first codex, and created the third pull request. And that's how the whole process started. It was really interesting to see how diligently she actually tested everything. So it's really important that if you contribute to a code base, you don't leave the testing to the owner or the senior member of your team. You will take the responsibility. We had really good analytics tools that we show you in the toast, that if you fired an analytics event, for example. So she could go through one by one and test that everything works correctly. She was also really diligent to respond to every comment that I made. There was always like 30 comments first on her pull request, then only 20, then only 10. Everything got better and better, and there was really super fast feedback cycles. And here was really interesting that even non-engineers could sense somehow that Cloud Code or Codex is doing something strange, something that you're doing too much, and then it won't be good for the people and won't be good for the code if for example, she left that pull request in or commit this thing. It was really good to see that even non-engineers see this pattern here. Of course, and this is just wanted to highlight as a negative thing here, because she had also other responsibilities. We had really short feedback and fast feedback cycles, but it was really bursty. She had other things to do, and which is true for all of the warriors that we have here. But it's really important that what I suggested to her, and she kept actually this thing, is that he built a small mental model for how the code is actually working. So it was not a vibe coding experience where she was screaming with Cloud and trying to check out and make it work, but also try to a little bit understand how the code is working, to see and take shortcuts and not report and push something that she already knew that is not working. Our next warrior is Anna from design team. She wanted to add new UI components to the application, which basically would help you and promote pro subscription for the user. It was really interesting to see that this was like a role completely, not greenfield, but a separate experience. We use sample apps in the Craft app base. These sample apps basically a small portion of the whole application, so you can build faster and you can build things independently of the main features and the main Craft application that we have here. She could really fast move here with Cloud Code. Cloud Code didn't have to swarm and scan all of the files that we have in the main code base, only had to focus on the modules that we extracted for her in this sample application. It was really interesting to see that the normal engineering and designer lifecycle, feature development lifecycle, is working in a way that there's a ping pong between the designer and the engineer that, okay, I finished with my work, okay, this shadow is not good, this color is not good, and there is like a cycle here that was instantly shortcutted by Anna because she was the engineer and she was also the designer on this part. Still a big learning here, that this thing was, once it was created, the whole UI, the whole card, actually, the subscription card was there. The integration was still a job for the engineers because it really intervened with a lot of components, and it would be too much for an entry-level task for non-engineers. After the lead is, let's talk about a little bit about the gentlemen. Moritz, or growth manager, who is actually managing our Slack community, is recognized that a lot of people are missing a lot of integration from Craft. Like they wanted to integrate, like they want to import their booking list from Leadwise. They wanted to share the email and send it to the Craft, so it became documents. And they also wanted to have a web clipper when they're traversing the web, and they can add just quickly content to their Craft documents. All of the things could not be done because all of the platform teams were heavily into release mode, and they push it forward with core features. So he fired up Cursor and started to code himself. This was also a little bit a greenfield project. I wanted for you to recognize the same pattern here, that there is a separate thing, a separate service that you want to implement, but it will eventually be integrated and communicating with a core feature who is untouched here. So that's giving some leverage. This giving some releasing some pressure on the people that they won't mess up a lot of things here. And it was shipped, and it was really good to see that actually things that we didn't have time for were actually shipped, and people can try it out. It was a big success here. One thing that he actually mentioned that was really hard, that even though this was a greenfield project, he still had to work with schemas and databases, and it was not clear for him because he missed the experience. What is a one-way door decision you cannot back up off, or a two-way door which you can replace anytime in the future if you want. And because these were a little bit bigger features that I mentioned before, these were also heavily beta tested. Beside the internal dogfooding culture that I mentioned, we also have an external capability or beta community who heavily tested all of the features. Not to talk about that, all of the things that I mentioned previously, pull request checks, security checks was also done here. It was a really big success. And lastly, I want to talk about a little bit Chris, who is our backend engineer. He is a little bit the odd one out here because he's an engineer, but I wanted to mention this example because it's a really good example of cross-team development. He's a backend engineer working with Node.js, TypeScript, and in VS Code, and he have to jump in Xcode to write Swift code to help us implement one of our new subscription flow in a DMG Mac application. It's really interesting to see, and I wanted to mention here because this is kind of more advanced example of how others of external people from your team can actually contribute to your code base. It was what he mentioned here, but it was really interesting to see that even what I mentioned that it was really good that in sample apps you have a separate environment. Cloud Code doesn't have to scan that much. For Chris, he had to work and he had to integrate actually this thing into the whole application. And Cloud Code could give you really good points that this is the flow where everything will start. This is like the example that how you can do it. Of course, there was heavily sync with senior people to verify that it's actually the good part, but it is really good to see that he was not completely lost. He could actually find the signpost where he had to go. And in what I mentioned that around Lisa here, that she already had some sense, gut feeling that something is off when Cloud Code went sideways. He, as an engineer, had stronger impact, stronger feeling that something's off. He already knew the control flows, only the language was different. Of course, I cannot go ahead of the barrier that he had to get to learn Xcode a little bit Swift better because it was such a big pain for him going from the script environment into a compiled environment, but it was actually a success. The pull request hopefully will be merged within a week, and he could actually implement a complete new checkout flow into the application. One of the key things that I want to mention, what we learned from his story, is actually the curiosity. Once we were done actually with the flow and I verified the pull request, we started to talk together, and more questions emerged from him about the code base, like how windowing working, what is this delegate thing that you're doing here, what are weak references, what are strong references, and there was like a really interesting curiosity. built up in him, which I think a really key part to make sure that these whole stories are not just about supervising and doing everybody work at the task that, for example, you didn't have time for, and they can actually help you, help the core platform team developing and delivering things that there was no time actually for, but they can actually get curious about the code base. As myself, this slide is about me, who actually try to support them, is actually what I learned, that I also learned new tricks from here. And it was really interesting to see how Cloud Code could develop new features and how they could try new tricks, which I, in my 14 years, never thought of. That was really interesting to see. And also it's a honest feedback about your code base and honest feedback about your onboarding process, how you can actually, like, new people can actually start coding in your project. What you need to prepare for if you choose this part, this supportative law, that you need to read a lot, because Cloud Code can create a lot of code that you need to read, even though if it's well formatted or really effective. And of course, you need to be patient, and you need to teach people. You need to write 30 comments, then 20 comments, then 10 comments. But the key thing is that when I want to, the main message here is that I wanted you to take home here, is that the inflection point is there when these people who started completely new in your code base start getting curious about the code base, how everything's working. They're starting to build a mental model, then getting the dopamine about the success, because all of the things that I mentioned here was success. That's the part where you actually gain a half engineer in your team that can also help you contribute to the code base. Because as I mentioned before, it's really our problem. So the product is actually our problem, and it's much better to build it together. So thank you very much. This is all that I wanted to share here. Thank you.